I hate crime. I was sitting there in my office wishing I was ambidextrous. I was put into that frame of mind by two visits within half an hour of each other. The first one was from Frances Manners. Frances was one of those dames you see in perfume ads. You know, so perfect they're too good to be true. Long, fair hair, blue eyes, a wistful expression. Any minute you expected her to step on a cloud and float away. But she was there in my office, and there was something on her mind.
My father.
Yeah, I read all about it.
I want you to find who it was who killed him, Larry.
Look, kid, the cops will do a good job.
The police can't go to places you can. I'm willing to pay you, of course.
She wanted to pay me. She worked in an office, made about £6 a week, and she wanted to pay me 10 a day plus expenses. And my expenses run high. But she looked so helpless and sweet standing there that I forgot about rates. Her father's name was Lester Manners. A few nights before, he'd been found in a Maclay Street alley, his head bashed in. I told her the truth. The police were equipped to do a better job than me.
Perhaps. But Dad and you were friends, and he had faith in you. So have I.
You can't resist anything like that, can you? I asked her for all the information she could give me.
There's one thing that never reached the newspapers, probably because the police consider it an important clue.
What is it?
There was a mark on Dad's cheek, a mark that could have been caused by the initial on a man's ring.
What kind of a mark?
Here, I'll do it for you.
She took my pencil and made a mark that was like a small upside-down triangle. Now, what initial would make an upside-down triangular mark on a man's face? If the punch was straight, there are only three. An A, an N, and an M. It wasn't much, but there was something else, too.
Dad had been gambling quite a lot, too.
And that was all. I said I'd do my best, and then she left the office. 15 minutes later, I had my second visitor. I knew him, too.
Hello, Larry.
Jim Perkins was his name. Jim was the successful self-made businessman type. Square, short, thinning hair, big jaw, and well-tailored, expensive clothes that he didn't look comfortable in. After the usual preliminaries, he sat down.
I want to hire you, Larry, if you're available.
What's on your mind?
My wife, Mildred. You haven't met her, have you?
No.
Perhaps it's just as well. You see...
Then he gave me the story. His wife was a good enough dame, he said, but a little on the silly side. She went in for charm bracelets, never spilt salt without tossing some over her left shoulder, read her horoscope regularly. You know the type. But now she'd gone too far. There was a guy who kept his eyes open for soft touches like Mildred.
Swami Tardine.
Yeah. A phony fortune teller. I've heard of him.
He's more than a fortune teller, I'm afraid. He's a medium, or claims to be. Brings voices from the grave and all that rot.
Uh-huh. And where does he come into it?
Mildred has been visiting his office, which is in his home.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mind at first, as long as it made her happy. But she's beyond that stage now. It's become serious.
Serious?
She's been giving him money.
Are you sure?
Positive. Though she refused to admit it. A month ago, Larry, there was £4,000 in my wife's bank account. Yesterday, she asked me for 1,000. When I asked her what she wanted it for, she just refused to say a word.
Does she know how you feel about the Swami?
I've left her in no doubt on that score.
I see. What do you want me to do?
Unmask Swami. Prove to Mildred that he's a fake. Are you interested?
I said I was. So, I took down the Swami's address and phone number, accepted a check as an advance from Jim, and then I promised to start moving, which left me with 2 cases. But I had no suspect in the first one, while I knew who the guilty party was in the second. I rang the Swami's number. A secretary type took my name, and then I waited 5 minutes for the Swami to come on.
Yes?
My name is Barry Sloan.
Can I help you, Mr. Sloan?
Yes, Swami. You've been recommended to me. I'd like to make an appointment with you.
I think that can be arranged. Would you like to see me soon?
As soon as possible.
Very well. Let us say at 11 this morning. Fortunately, I am free then.
I said I'd see him at 11, hung up, and then I whiled away a few minutes at the corner pub. Following 2 brandies and an interesting discussion with the new barmaid, I hopped into my car and shot out to the Swami's joint. He lived in a shack that looked and felt like a mausoleum. His secretary, a hatchet-faced character whose face would crack if he smiled, opened the door and showed me the way to the Swami's office. The fake was a long-faced guy with coal-black eyes, bushy black hair, a mean mouth, and fangs.
Mr. Sloan, a pleasure.
How do you do?
Sit down, please.
Thanks.
Now, what is there I can do for you?
I told him I'd like some news from my brother who'd been dead for 15 years. He hemmed and hawed, looked into a smoky glass ball, and muttered some under-the-breath double talk. Finally, he put his hands up in front of himself and shrugged.
It is no use. Nothing will come. There is something wrong.
Is there?
I cannot understand it. I do not get any message whatsoever.
Then you can't help me, huh?
I am sorry, no. But perhaps your information is incorrect. Your name, are you sure it is Sloan?
What do you think it is?
Well, I wonder if it could be Kent? Larry Kent? That is correct?
Yeah. You've got a good memory for faces. There was a photo of me in the papers a couple of days ago.
Why did you come here?
I want to show a client that you're a fake.
Please, go. I am a legitimate medium. I have not time to waste with disbelievers. Go.
I went, satisfied that he was as phony as some politician's promises. I went to see another character. Her name was Hilda Finlay. Hilda was about 30, looked like she was born at the North Pole, and had cut her teeth on icicles. But deep down, she had a heart, as soft as lead. And she owed me a favor.
What do you want me to do in return, Larry?
Get dressed up like a lady.
A lady?
Yep. And act as though you still believe in fairies.
Hey, what's the angle? Have you been drinking?
No. Hilda, how'd you like to get your fortune told? See what's in the future, huh?
Hmm? Hey, what are you talking about?
I told her what was on my mind. And though she wasn't too keen on it, she owed me a favor. So I took her into town, spent some advance expense money on women's clothes. When we were done, she looked like high society. Then we made an appointment with the Swami that same evening.
What do I do when I get there?
Just let him talk. Swallow everything he says. Make him think you've got money to burn and you carry a box of matches with you.
And then?
We'll go on from there later. At 9 o'clock, an hour after Hilda went to see the Swami, I was waiting for her in a coffee shop. She sat down at the table and shook her head.
Well, Larry, I got exactly nowhere.
What did he do?
Well, he looked into a crystal ball, told my fortune, said that was all, smiled and said goodnight. He wouldn't even take any money from me.
Yeah. Had it all figured out. Knew I'd try to get at his racket through somebody else. Well, that fizzled.
Yes. He struck me as being smart.
Sure. He's no dumbbell.
Well, what are you going to do now?
Go home. Maybe I'll think of something. 20 minutes later, my car was in the garage, and I was walking down the street to my block of flats 6 or 7 doors away. Suddenly, the sidewalk was crowded.
Got a match?
Sorry, I just ran out of them.
That's all right.
But the 2 guys who'd walked out of the shadows didn't move to let me go by. They were built like brick walls and would be just about as hard to knock down.
You're Laddie Kent, ain't you?
I didn't answer. He smiled.
Sure you are. We've been hearing things about you, Kent.
Is that right?
Yeah. The things we heard aren't so nice.
Who are you?
Sorry. No introductions. Just advice.
Like?
Like sticking your nose in your own business.
That's very good advice.
Yeah. Too bad you didn't take it before.
Before what?
Before a certain party told us you were getting troublesome. We hate to see that it doesn't happen again, see? We're gonna give you something to think about.
I could see what they were, professional bashers. I looked around quick, but before I could hit the road came up and hit me. Oh!
This is what we mean.
The rest was a series of blows that connected all over my head, face and body. Then I saw flashing lights, and then... I came to with my face against a garbage can. I felt my face, and then I pulled my hand away. Wet, hot, and sticky. It took me minutes, maybe an hour, to get to my feet. I staggered, grabbed, rolled, and crawled to the doorway of my building. Up the stairs and into my room. I passed out again. When I opened my eyes, the room was going around in circles. I was sick. I crawled to a cupboard, put a bottle to my lips, and gulped till it hurt. Finally, I climbed up, went into the bathroom, flicked the light switch, and looked in the mirror. What I saw made me turn on the tap and wash the blood away quickly. There it was, on my cheek. A very neat letter N. The skin wasn't cut and the mark would go in a few hours. But it was there. And it was just as Francis had said.
A mark that could have been caused by the initial on a man's ring.
A mark. An upside-down triangle. Either an A, an M, or an N. 2 cases suddenly moved together. I had no idea why. Maybe I'd never know why. But I knew one thing. I was mad. 12 hours in bed and I could stand on my feet. A bath, cup of coffee, and a change of clothes helped too. The shave took an hour and wasn't very successful, but I wasn't too particular. When I could walk without hanging onto something, I left the flat, drove to the office, and figured out a campaign. Then I made a phone call. Francis, Larry Kent here.
Larry, what is it? Have you
Don't jump to conclusions, just listen. I think I've got a lead on the guys who did the job on your father.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I got it in writing.
In writing?
I'll explain some other time. I just want you to know that I'm working on the case. Goodbye. After that, I phoned the office of my other client.
Yes, Larry?
Jim, I want to see your wife. Is she home?
Why, yes. I spoke to her on the phone only 10 minutes ago.
Good. Listen, Jim. Don't worry if she doesn't show up for dinner tonight.
Dinner? Larry, is it about the Swami?
Yeah.
What do you plan to do?
Attend a seance. The Perkins house was one of those white stucco affairs just off Dover Road at Rose Bay.
Yes?
Mildred Perkins had graying hair that was blued up very attractively. The face beneath it was smooth, still pretty, and featured the biggest, bluest, most innocent eyes I've ever spotted. I introduced myself.
Larry Kent?
Yeah, I'm a private investigator.
Oh, yes. I thought I recognized the name. But you must be at the wrong place.
Well, you're Mildred Perkins, aren't you?
Yes, but
I'm working for your husband, Mrs. Perkins.
Oh, my husband. Oh, please come in.
Thanks.
Mr. Kent, Jim isn't in some kind of trouble, is he?
No, but you are. Financial trouble, and he's worried.
Oh. Oh, I think I understand. It's Jim's idea about the Swami.
They're my ideas, too, Mrs. Perkins. The Swami is a rat, a confidence man, and a fake.
The Swami is a gifted person.
You mean he accepts gifts? How much have you given him?
That's none of your business.
It's your husband's business.
Well, I own some property. I'll make it up to Jim. But I don't want a third party called in.
It's my job to be called in. It's also my job to prove that the Swami is a fake.
You wouldn't say that if you met him.
I've already met him. And if you're so sure he's the real McCoy, you won't mind arranging it so we meet again. I'd like to attend one of his seances.
Yes. Yes, that's the way to show Jim and you. All right, Mr. Kent. I'll phone the Swami and arrange a seance. For tonight.
No sooner said than done. When Mildred Perkins let the Swami know what the score was, he could do nothing but accept, or take the chance of losing a 7-course meal ticket. The seance was set for 10 that night, giving me a couple of hours. I visited a friend of mine, a guy who sold photographic equipment. When I left his store, I had a special camera strapped around my waist. Then I saw another guy.
You look like you got something on your mind, Kent.
I have, Matty. How's business?
Not the best, I don't mind telling you.
Got any friends in the same boat?
Some.
2 or 3 of them, maybe? Good men?
Good men.
Fine. I've got a job for you. Hatchet-Face, the Swami's man Friday, opened the door for Mildred Perkins and me. He bowed, let a twitch of his jaw muscles pass for a smile, and stepped inside. We walked in. Hatchet-Face led us into the Swami's room, did another salam, and took a powder.
Hello again, Mr. Kent.
Hi.
Are you quite ready for the seance, Mrs. Perkins?
Quite ready, Swami, and anxious for you to prove your great gift to Mr. Kent.
Yes. Usually I would not bother myself with disbelievers. It annoys the spirits. But for you, my dear, anything.
Oh, thank you, Swami.
Not at all. Your happiness is important to me. Very well. We will begin.
He made us sit around a small table and the 3 of us hold hands. Then the lights went out. There was silence for a few minutes. Finally...
A message. I have a message. From an old man. A very old man. There is a mole on the right side of his chin.
Uncle Gabriel.
Quiet, please.
Uncle Gabriel's face was suddenly flashed against the curtain. A phosphorescent light glided by. A trumpet floated through the air. The Swami then passed along some greeting from Mildred's dead uncle. After that, There were other messages right off the family tree. More floating faces and objects, and then...
That is all. The voices are gone.
It's amazing. Amazing. There you are, Mr. Kent.
There's what?
It was true. Everything we heard about deceased members of my family was true.
Sure it was.
And their faces, exactly as they looked in real life.
Yep. Just like photographs.
Then you're convinced?
Yep. I've got all the evidence I need.
I'm sure you have, Mr. Kent.
I left soon after that, wondering if the Swami would let me get through the front door. He did. Then I knew I'd figured it right. It's an old trick. With what he figured I had, he couldn't afford to let me go. So, I got into my car, drove home, and walked into my flat a couple of minutes later. I switched on the light.
Hold it, Kent. Just stay as you are.
It was my friend with the initial ring and his quiet buddy.
First, I'll take the camera.
Sure. The Swami got in touch with you quickly, didn't he?
Shut up. The camera.
Yeah. Here you are. You know, I'll have to get my landlady to buy a new lock. That door has already been opened with a hairpin. Speaking of doors, that one behind you is opening. Okay. I warned you.
All right, lift your hand.
Why,
Don't try anything. There are three of us here.
See, I wasn't kidding. Keep 'em covered, Matty, while I take the guns.
Right.
I figured you boys would be along as soon as I arranged this little party. It seems the Swami doesn't like to dirty his doorstep. And now, let's find out what the letter N stands for, huh? The guy with the ring usually did the talking, but he could keep his mouth shut when he wanted to. I saw that right away. So, I turned to his sidekick. Sometimes if you use the right technique, you can get a quiet guy to hold a real nice conversation. I'll tell you what that's for, pal. 5 days ago, a guy was bashed. A guy who did a lot of gambling. He was bashed too hard and he never came to. I figure you two boys are professional slug artists, that the guy Lester Manners left the gambling joint with too much cash. And so you were called in to relieve him of it. Right? Oh! I'll get you to talk yet, sweetheart. But to continue. There was a mark on Manners' face. A mark made by your pal's ring, the letter N. I got the same mark when you were called in by the Swami to teach me a little lesson. It's a coincidence that's got you both in a lot of trouble. You feel like spilling the beans yet? No?
Don't. Oh.
It went on for a long time. The guy took an awful shellacking. My hands were starting to hurt, and his face must have felt like a pincushion. Then, when I was almost ready to phone the cops and let them take over...
No, don't hit me again. I'll talk.
Go ahead. Hesitate and you get another one.
We didn't mean to kill the covert. Nicky here.
Nicky, huh?
Yeah, Nicky. He kept on hitting him and hitting him. I got
Why,
scared.
you
Back up, Nicky.
You wouldn't be so tough if you weren't holding guns on me.
No? Matty, take our pal here in the other room and get him to sign a confession. Then give him a drink.
All right, man.
And you two guys, put your guns in your pockets. I'm giving Nicky a chance to get into action.
I'll murder you,
He came at me like a bull. His fist missed my Adam's apple by inches. He had at least 40 pounds on me, but I owed him a good beating, so I brought up my boot. The Marquis of Queensbury wouldn't have liked it. Even if I'd used my hands, it would have been a foul. While Nicky bent over feeling sorry for himself, I had plenty of time to line up a legitimate punch. Well, that took care of my first job. The cops had been looking for them for a long time. They worked for a miniature murder incorporated that specialized in stand-over work for a price. Al, the quiet guy, not only signed a confession on the Manners killing, he sang and sang, trying to get himself off easier till the cops were able to round up the whole rotten mob. And the Swami? Well, it was proved that he'd hired 2 men from the mob to work on me. He skipped town and was finally caught looking for a hole in Melbourne. That was enough to steer Mildred Perkins away from fortune tellers, rabbit's feet, and even horoscope reading for life. The infrared camera? Well, nothing happened when we tried to develop the film. And that's just about that. Oh, except for Frances Manners. The next day, I went to her place and told her everything.
Larry, you must let me pay you for your services.
Not a chance.
I insist.
She looked as though she meant it. So, a couple of weeks later, I sent her a bill. It read, "For services rendered, 1 kiss." You know, there's one thing I like about Frances. When she pays her debts, she adds a heck of a lot of interest. Good night.